Once I started cave diving, all other forms of diving just like disappeared from my life, and I have not done any of them ever since or thought about them. I've just became completely obsessed with cave diving when I started.
Off-Gassing, a scuba podcast with host Nick Hogel. After coming across an advertisement for a scuba diving course, Rory O'Keefe decided, why not? Learning to dive in Canada is not for the timid, but after the course, he started diving as often as possible. With a love of trekking and this newfound passion, he would find himself backpacking through Southeast Asia in search of exotic dive destinations and volcanoes. Upon returning home, he booked a flight to Mexico and his life would forever be changed. Training to become a cave diver, underwater cave cartography, future mapping projects, the need for more cave cartographers, and much more. Please enjoy. Rory, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. I'm super caffeinated because I made a second pot of coffee when you showed up, and then I basically just been downstairs drinking it all.
Okay. I do enjoy coffee. So are you a big coffee drinker?
Yeah. I need to cut back probably.
I don't think there's ever such a thing. I do like my coffee a little too much. I actually in the past probably a couple years or so, it's so hot in Malaysia that I actually I do enjoy iced coffee now. Throw a couple cubes of ice in there, and even at the shop, I would fill it up halfway with coffee and then put water in it from the water dispenser at Under the Jungle, because just like, you know, you're running around, I'm just sweating, and then you drink a hot cup of coffee, I'm just like sweating even more. I'm like, okay, I need to cool this coffee down a little bit.
That should be more common in dive shops. You just fill a big thermos and put it with ice and have iced coffee after the dive.
What
here,
I'm saying.
at least.
Maybe you can start that new thing. That would be awesome. But no, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to have you on. And, I'll just throw out my first question. Tell me how and why you became scuba certified. Tell me about that first breath underwater, that first experience. What led to that moment?
Yeah, it was super random. Even now, I really don't remember why I took a dive class. I just remember doing it now. It was at home in Canada. It was in the Markham area. It was just with a local club called CanSAC, the Canadian Sub-Aqua Club. And I think I saw it on Kijiji or something, like an ad maybe. And I just clicked it and I started doing it.
How old are you?
Probably around 19, 20, maybe a little older. Yeah. And so I just did it and I signed up for it. And then it was spread out over about 2 months, where we would go kind of like 2 hours. We would go to this school at night, and they had a pool there. And so it worked. It kind of, I think doing it like once a week for 2 months got me hooked. Okay. And then we had pool access on like Monday nights. And so once I was certified, I would just go every Monday night.
Oh, just to the pool?
And just like float in a pool, like hover in a pool.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how I got started. And then that basically turned into me diving with that club all summer in like the Canadian Great Lakes on the shipwrecks.
Oh, okay. So curious, when you started that class, was it, I'm assuming that there was the pool sessions and then the open water sessions?
There was no open water until it was all done, because we were doing this during the winter.
Oh,
and so there was a pause. So we were doing the pool sessions, and then there was like a couple months of a pause before we did open water. And then that was a shock, because so when we finally got to the open water, it was like my first time in a wetsuit and everything. And it was freezing. It was in Tobermory, if anyone knows where that is. It's cold, and it was in, I want to say in April or something. And so the water was like a degree above freezing. And I remember there was like one girl in my class had to be like carried out of the water, like on a shore dive, because her legs didn't work anymore. It was so cold. We were all in wetsuits, like our first time ever. I just remember being in shock.
Yeah, that cold water will definitely shock you. But you stuck with it though. Obviously, you liked it enough to keep going.
Amazing.
Cool. So you just signed up for it. There was like no buddy going into it with you. It was just something that you wanted to do.
Yeah, actually, I should have said that. I did it with my sister.
Oh, okay. Is she still a diver?
No, she had a kid and stuff and got out of it.
Okay. So You started diving with the club. At that point, did you know you wanted to progress further, or was it something that just kind of naturally happened?
It happened all extremely quickly. Basically, as soon as I did that initial open water weekend at Tobermory, and then I definitely dived every single weekend after that. And so I just progressively, I was probably diving doubles by the end of the summer already.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Still in a wetsuit or?
No, I ended up buying a dry suit pretty quickly.
How was that transition? I know it's kind of odd for some people.
Yeah, it was weird. I definitely had some of the, I'm not a natural diver, I would say that. So I definitely had I learned in the pool again. And then for sure, rocket launched myself to the surface multiple times for a few Monday nights until I figured it out.
Okay. And then, so when you went into the doubles, I'm assuming that's kind of, the I don't want to say technical side, but I guess technical side. So when you were taught, was it like a standard just jacket, recreational style? And then when you progressed to doubles, how was that? Was there a big push on, trim? I mean, I know you should be at that point when you're doing doubles, but some people are not so much kind of pushed into that.
Yeah, the doubles was just me. On the internet, me on the internet learning how to dive doubles, and some guys in the dive club helped out a little bit. But I started that without training.
Oh wow! Okay.
And then I was taught correctly when I came to Mexico.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. And then so how did Mexico pop up? Like what prompted Mexico?
It happened all real quick. So I dived all summer in Canada, and then we couldn't dive anymore because it was too cold. And so I went to Southeast Asia. I did a month in Malaysia, a month in Thailand. So I did all these dive trips there, and then I came back and I wasn't done, just ready. I didn't want to start working again, so I went to Mexico.
Oh, okay. Well, I should have asked this question first. Tell me about the local diving in Canada. You said there's a bunch of shipwrecks. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So tell me about what the water like. Well, I mean, you kind of said the water temperature, but obviously nice enough, and you were passionate enough to be like, okay, I want to go every weekend. But what's the local diving like up there?
I don't even remember anymore. Oh boy, I haven't been back. It's really nice.
Is it?
In my memory, I remember the water was usually 36 Fahrenheit to 44.
That's cold. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe lower than 36. 32 is freezing.
Yeah, 32 is freezing.
Yeah, I think it was 30, 33, 34 sometimes. A lot of them are wooden wrecks.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know much about them. I'm not much of a dive site info person. I just kind of go and look at the shipwreck.
Okay. And then, so you traveled to Southeast Asia. I'm just curious, where in Malaysia did you go?
I went to diving in Sipadan.
Oh, that's amazing. That's I have not been there yet, but I've heard amazing things about it. I feel like Southeast Asia is just a destination that a lot of people will go to, but was it just kind of okay, I'm going to go, was it a backpacking thing? Was it?
Yeah, well, backpacking with dive gear.
Oh,
which sucks. So doing the whole backpacking, hostel, buses, but also with the gigantic duffel bag of dive gear.
Yeah, what kind of were you backplate wing or?
Yeah, for that it was.
Okay.
I think that's maybe how I started. No, because I had dived double, but I had the backplate, and I think I probably bought a little aluminum backplate and a really tiny travel wing for that. It worked well because that stuff packs down very small.
Oh, that is absolutely hilarious because I've said it a couple times on the podcast, and some people that know me, that's actually how I found my way to a backplate and wing, was because I was figuring out a way, because I did a travel from the States to Indonesia, and I just had this big, stupid scuba duffel bag, right? And it just, I hated it, and I was trying to figure out a way, and I was like, oh, a backplate and wing, I could it's modular, so I could take it apart and then put it back together. You can get this tiny little wing. A backplate will just slide right into a backpack. It'll be super easy. And yeah, that's actually literally how I found my way to a backplate and wing. It wasn't this is the thing you should be diving. It was oh, this will be easier, because a jacket BCD, trying to pack that as a backpacker is just absolutely a horrible idea.
It's not working.
So tell me about the Southeast Asia trip. Where'd you go? What kind of dive? I mean, obviously some warm tropical diving. Probably, did you even bring a wetsuit or no?
Yeah, I had a 3 mil wetsuit. Okay, let's see if I can remember. I did it, so just if anyone's listening. Once I started cave diving, all other forms of diving just like disappeared from my life, and I have not done any of them ever since or thought about them. I've just became completely obsessed with cave diving when I started. So that's why I'm like, I did in Thailand, I did. So.
Well, I'm sure you remember I mean, you could talk a little bit about the diving, but like just kind of the travel. Yeah. What was your first destination? Did you have the itinerary in mind, or was it land and sea, where, kind of the backpacking experience?
Yeah, it was a mix of like hiking and trekking and diving as well. So I started in Thailand. There's a popular liveaboard in Thailand that you do. Similin Islands? Yes, yeah. I did that. That was very cool. Saw a huge manta ray. I remember that. Okay. That was pretty much, I don't even know. I don't think I actually did any ocean diving before that liveaboard. I think I just went straight into it, and it was my first time ever even in saltwater.
Oh,
and I remember being like a little bit overwhelmed.
Really?
Because also the waves were big, and it was like a huge boat. It was like middle of nowhere. I remember being a little bit overwhelmed, like, oh, is this a mistake? Now I have to do this. And I was super seasick the whole time. I was like puking off the side of the boat in secret.
So I'm assuming you landed in Bangkok and then just made your way down to the Similin Islands? Did you spend any time in Bangkok?
That sounds right, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. The typical, what is it, Khao San Road? I know a lot of people will go there to kind of do the party thing.
I didn't do like so much partying. I was basically dividing things up between like trekking and like, there's a lot of volcanoes out in that area, like especially in Malaysia and stuff, in Indonesia.
Yeah.
So it's dividing up with like trekking and diving, like longer dive trips, like liveaboards, and things like that. Okay,
so you like to hike volcanoes?
At the time, very much. Actually, I still do.
Oh, okay, okay.
There's some here in Mexico.
Okay, I'm curious to know a little bit more about that. So, Thailand, and then did you just kind of continue going south? Is that how you ended up in Malaysia?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was planned. I planned like Thailand, Malaysia, then Indonesia.
Okay. Did you make your way to Penang at all?
No.
Okay. Yeah, it's right on the... if you look at Malaysia, it's like but it's up in the northwest part of Malaysia. Basically, like, so I live in Penang, where I live is, I want to say it's like 2 hours to the border of Thailand. Okay. So it's right there. No diving in Penang. If you go up a little bit north, there's a little bit diving in Langkawi, and then right in southern Thailand, there's Koh Lipe, which is really, really nice diving. So traveled throughout Southeast Asia, Malaysia, and then Indonesia?
Yeah, I did Indonesia. I mean, there's little, boat dives spread out. But the big thing in Indonesia, I did liveaboard in Raja Ampat.
Oh, I've been there. That, I think, was like kind of what spoiled me to the tropical diving. You did a liveaboard in Raja Ampat? Yeah. Oh, that must have been amazing. How was that?
That was cool. I remember, we saw a lot of manta rays and stuff. I think a lot of these things I probably didn't appreciate as much as I should have, because this was like my first saltwater diving like ever, and so I think I kind of thought that it's always like that. And I learned after it isn't. I did not to throw anything under the bus, but I did like a Bahamas liveaboard after, and it was like not the same.
Oh yeah, no. I've not been to the Bahamas, but no, actually, so I went to Indonesia pretty early on in my diving career, and then I was debating, because the first time I ever went diving was in Thailand, and I was debating when I was like looking to do my dive master internship. I was debating Thailand, and nothing against Thailand. I love Thailand, but I went there. I did one dive after I'd been to Indonesia. As soon as I came up out of the water, I emailed a place in Indonesia, because I was like, Indonesia's, to me, my favorite diving in the world. It's absolutely amazing. So, made your way back to Canada, and then you said you were like, okay, I'm not done. I need to go to Mexico. So was Mexico the top of your list? Like, how did it come about?
The flight was cheap.
Okay, was there any idea of overhead environments or cave diving or anything like that?
I saw, cenote diving in Mexico. And so I basically planned, went for 2 weeks. I did a week of cenote diving and then a week in like Mexico City, in the Oaxaca area. Yeah, I didn't put necessarily so much thought into like, I'm going to be a cave diver or anything like that. I just sort of winged it and found a shop. So I did that, and I was like, wow, this is like easily like the best diving ever, like the cenotes, and like, I'll definitely just come here from now on. And I didn't really...
like instantly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say like, I didn't think I could become a cave diver yet, because I thought that was like this super challenging, hardcore thing. You have to be like the best diver in the world to do that.
Yeah.
And I now know you don't. You can just start. It's just going to take a while, but you just start the training.
Okay. When you knew you wanted to become a cave diver, how did that path go?
I think how it went from doing like a tour to actually thinking I could be a cave diver, I think I just asked the guide. I was like, so do you think I'm ready? Like, I could start training? I know it's going to take me 10 years, but... And he was like, oh, yeah, no, you're fine. You didn't care. He's just like, yeah, no, you're good. And so actually I tried to contact that same shop for my cave training like a few months later. I tried to come back. This is an interesting story.
Okay.
So I tried to contact that shop. That was Cenote Experience in Playa del Carmen.
Okay.
And the owner and the cave instructor there, Nico, he was about to get married or something, and so he couldn't do my training. So I started emailing other shops, and one of them was Natalie, who's now owns Under the Jungle. At the time, she was working under like Diablo Divers or something like that. But Natalie's now my wife, so that's how I met her. So it was kind of a weird
awesome.
situation where like the only reason I even met her was because this guy was getting married. Otherwise, I would have and then I don't even know if I would have ended up living here or anything. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of an interesting event.
So that's how you met Natalie? It's just
basically, yeah. She was just contacting someone for a cave course.
Okay. And then did you train with her?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's awesome. When you trained, did you do side mount then, or was it back mount doubles?
Back mount.
Okay.
Like I said, I had been sort of semi self-taught back mount, and thought I was better than I was. Yeah, and then Natalie taught me that you're not supposed to actually be swimming around in circles while doing valve drills and things like that. You're supposed to stay in one place.
Okay. So how was the training? Did you find it? I mean, I know when I kind of first started getting into the technical side of things, and even cave training, I did find it challenging. Some people, they might not, but I did. How was it for you? Was it like a natural thing, or how was it?
No, it was definitely not natural. I feel like I'm a horrible diver with stuff. Like I'm really, really bad trying to learn. It takes me a long time, and then I have to practice a lot.
Okay.
Like I did get through, so I guess I did sort of a intro. I had to learn how to dive doubles properly first. But I managed to get through that.
Like an intro to tech, basically?
Kind of. I think it was sort of merged into my cavern course.
Okay.
Which just ended up being an extra long cavern course. And then I managed to do that, and then I got through intro cave.
Okay.
Yeah, I stayed for like a month, so I ended up doing, it was like 2 weeks of training to do that, and then I did like 2 weeks of just cave, like intro cave level dives.
Okay, cool. But at that point, you were hooked, you wanted to keep going further.
Yeah, once I had actually, cave diving became a possibility, I was very, very hooked. Like I saw that I could do that, so it was, yeah.
When did you decide to move to Mexico full time? Like,
I didn't. Really?
Because the first trip was a month. Was there a few more trips before the permanent move, or
no.
how'd that work? Oh, really?
At this point, I was getting very into diving, and so I was thinking maybe I should do like a dive master and instructor course or something, because that's also what you do. And I wanted to come back to Mexico to do my full cave.
Yeah.
I just figured, I can stay for 6 months on a tourist visa, and so I did that, and I did like a 3-month internship in Xcalac. For the dive master instructor course kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
But I wasn't happy, and so I left after I did the dive master, and then I did my open water instructor in Playa with a different place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So just curious, you can, is that, because I want to say, as coming from the U.S., I think I have 3 months, 90 days that I can stay on a tourist visa. I think. I'm not sure.
It depends what immigration gives you when you arrive. They can technically
really?
give you up to 6 months if you ask.
Oh, really? Good to know for next time. Might have to come down here. 3 months, though, might be a little bit long, but we'll see.
So I guess to answer your original question on how I moved here, by the end of that 6 months, I was basically going to move here. And then I probably flew home to renew my visa. I think I maybe went back to Canada to work a little bit, just like a couple months at a time. But then it was already decided that I was going to move here.
Okay. So it was like, you're just instantly hooked. So you became the dive master instructor. How did you find that whole process? I know from going from like, I don't want to say, I guess the way to put it would be like non-pro to pro. How did you find that whole transition?
It was, I don't know. It was, I didn't really do it I just did it for that internship period.
Yeah. So it wasn't for you.
I wouldn't say that. I think it was, I had just been getting I only cared about cave diving at that point, I think is what I should probably say.
Okay.
And so I was very uninterested in the open water stuff and teaching that.
So what?
I think I just wasn't interested in it anymore.
What was drawing you to the cave? Like, what was the
They're just gorgeous. There was just all the speleothems, and the water is just beautiful, clear, and that was it.
All right. No, I mean, I get it. Like, I guess I'm always just curious to see what other people, what draws them to it. Because I know, same thing. I just think it's I don't want to say spooky environment, but like you go in there, it's dark, and then as I was going through my training, it's crazy because like my light I'll have, and it's just like this beam of light, and you're just kind of, this is going to sound so dumb, but you're just like controlling it, obviously, where it goes. And it's just like, you're like shining it over here, and you just see this beam shooting across the cave. And I'm like, man, this is such a cool feeling. I'm flying through this cave right now. But yeah, no, I absolutely enjoyed it. So you started progressing through your full cave training. When did you become fully certified? At that first month, or?
That was, so my second, when I came back to Mexico for like the 6-month trip, I did full cave pretty much at the start of that trip.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So another thing that you got into was surveying and creating maps. Like, how did you what pushed you in that direction?
Well, I would say with Natalie, she was my cave instructor, she does use maps a lot on her courses for like dive planning and things like that. And so they were a big part of my cave diving already. It was also one of those things where I didn't think I would end up doing that at all. It just seemed so far out of reach to me, like to become like a cave cartographer. And then one day we were at Zero Gravity. It's a dive shop, the GUE dive shop here. And we're buying something like line markers or something at the store there. And in the parking lot, this guy just walked by and was like, "Oh, hi, Natalie." And Natalie's like, "Hi." And she's like, introduced me to him, a guy named Peter Sprouse. And he's not a diver. He's a caver, just a dry cave. And he was down here. He's been coming down here for like 30 years or something. And he was down here with just other teams of dry cavers, and they were mapping caves here.
Yeah.
And so Natalie just kind of introduced me to him and said, "Oh, Peter does this, and Rory really likes maps. Maybe you should go with him." And so I was like, "Okay, why not?" And so I did that, and he kind of started teaching me survey and sketching.
All dry caving?
All dry caving.
Okay. Had you been dry caving before?
Well, just like some tourist stuff while I was randomly traveling, but not in that context.
Yeah.
No. And so again, it was just a random encounter in a parking lot, and that led into what I do now.
Okay.
So Peter basically taught me all the cartography stuff that I know, and he showed me how to use the software, like the survey software, and how to like export your surveys into Illustrator and drafting. He taught me all of that.
Okay, so as somebody that has no idea about cartography and what it takes to map a cave, tell me a little bit about you find this new passage that you want to, or this new cave that you want to map. Like, talk me through that process a little bit.
So step one, and this is a very important step, is you have to learn the cave. You have to actually dive it and know where you are, because that's a big safety factor, right? So if anyone's like listening and wants to do this, you need to like go learn where you're mapping first.
So you're diving it a few times before you even decide to map it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to understand where you actually are.
Okay.
Before you start doing something complicated in it. So all your exits, your line navigation and stuff. So I do that first. Also just to decide do I really want to map this place, or is this just going to be a nightmare and way too complicated?
Okay. So then, so you've, I don't want to say turned down caves before, but have you? You're like, nope, it's not going to work out. I'm sorry. So when you've explored it, you decide, okay, this is something I want to map. What's the next step?
Yeah. So next step, you need to have a survey. So the survey is it's a survey of the guidelines. So cave divers use guidelines. And basically we're going to take the depth at each point that the line is tied off, so into a rock or something. You're going to take that depth, and then you're going to take the azimuth, so the compass bearing from that tie off to the next tie off. And then you're going to take the distance from that tie off to the next tie off.
How are you finding the distance?
With a piece of string, a 2-foot piece of string.
Oh, so you're literally just... Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
And most of the guidelines, like explorers as well, we usually will knot the line ahead of time at 10-foot intervals. You still have to measure at the end of the lines. Basically, you don't have obviously like an even 10-foot interval to the tie-off. So you end up having to measure those. And as well, that the tension of the line plays a role in like how accurate that 10-foot interval is now. Because if you pull the line really tight, it might be a little bit more. So I just measure with the 2-foot string. It's fast. Once you figure it out, it's really fast. And so basically you just compile all that information into a spreadsheet on like a survey software. The thing I use is called Walls. And it just puts out a stick map, just a little series of lines that represent the guidelines.
Okay. At that point, how are you, I guess, building like the outer walls and the features? Is that just, I'm assuming, I don't want to say memory, but you're probably going in and sketching as you're going a little bit at a time?
Yep. So with the same software, I'll split up the line survey into pieces that fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And I print them onto waterproof paper, which is just thin plastic sheets. It sounds cool, but it's just plastic. And usually, so I'll have a grid, like I use a 2 meter by 2 meter grid with the line survey over top. And then I just take that, go underwater, follow along the line, and sketch the details as accurately as I can.
When you, because the map that you created, Dos Palmas, is that right?
Yep, Dos Palmas.
Did that just kind of start out of like, oh, I'm going to go map this cave, and then started growing into this pretty detailed map? Like how did that all come about?
I knew that was going to be a big project before I started, yeah. So I had just finished a mapping and an exploration project called Exploradora that ended up being about a 7-kilometer map.
Okay, was that so that you'd done a previous map before?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Your first map, Exploradora? That
was my first larger map that I actually finished.
Okay.
I have many other little maps that are, between 20% and 90% finished that I'll probably never finish now.
Well, tell me about Exploradora first, I guess.
So that was originally the caver Peter Sprouse who taught me all this stuff. That came from him. I was just caving with those guys, and it's about 1 kilometer of dry cave, and it has a few sumps. And so I had a mask and a dive light, and I was just jumping in with my clothes into the water and checking if there was underwater leads on all of the sumps. And of course, the very farthest sump was the one. And I had gone down, and there was like a massive, massive tunnel.
Oh, wow.
Like, oh, yeah, this is good. This is like definite, like speleothems, everything. It's just like huge tunnel. But there was another dive team working already on a pretty big cave system very close to that. And so I think Peter sent them the survey data because they can just connect into that like easily on one dive or something, because they were so close. They were like 100 meters away from it or something like that. Maybe a little bit more. They never made a connection or anything like that. Neither did I, by the way. But so they just never ended up checking it. And so I went back probably like a year later to actually go dive it. I didn't actually find the going cave on that one, on my original try. So I went and dived it, and I thought, oh, damn, so this huge tunnel just ends up in this dead end. We had mapped the whole dry cave, so I had to go back and map that little dive line I had put in. And while I was mapping it, I saw up in this corner, I saw this like little window through some speleothems. It was really up high, and like it was very decorated there. So it was like not something I would necessarily check. But I thought, well, it's going to be an open lead on my map. So we just kind of went and poked our head through, and it did. It went back down, and it started going again. And so that ended up being the way on through that cave, where it turned into like this massive underwater thing.
Oh.
Huge project. Had to have Sherpas and like 12 tanks, not like per person, but like like 12 is the whole thing.
Shit.
We mapped that actually during COVID because it was basically right behind my house. There's no one around. It was just this hole in the jungle, and so
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a dry map as well as an underwater map.
Yeah, so it's both.
Oh,
it's got
okay.
both on there.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. Before we go into Dos Palmas, I have a hard time pronouncing things, so sorry. But do you appreciate dry caving as much as underwater caving, or underwater cave diving, I should say?
Yeah, I do. I actually really like it. It's harder because you can't just float over the giant pile of rocks. You have to climb over the giant pile of rocks. So diving is definitely easier in that sense.
Do you do the whole climbing, rappelling thing now, or?
I do the rappelling, no sort of like rock climbing thing, but I can climb up a rope.
Okay. And you learned that just to further your dry caving?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems like it's I don't want to say a thing, but I've kind of noticed that a lot of people that start doing cave diving, I feel like it's like a natural progression to start going into dry caving, which I think I can see, because my biggest experience with cave diving obviously happened over the course of this past month. And as I'm going through, I'm just like, man, this would be kind of a cool thing to start dry caving. So maybe it's something that I'll get into, because there's quite a few caves above the water table in Malaysia. I know there's quite a few caves. So actually I'll have to actually look into that. Maybe it could become a new hobby of mine.
Yeah. It's a lot cheaper than cave diving. Way, way cheaper. I remember when I was learning with the ropes and stuff, they were the people who were teaching me were like, oh yeah, and this stuff is kind of expensive, but once you buy it, it'll last you a long time. And I was like, how much is it? And it was like the entire set was like $250 or something. And I was like, sweet, this is awesome. Like, that's how much my primary reel costs, like.
Okay, and then tell me about building or creating Dos Palmas map.
Yeah, I just went straight into it right after the Explorador map.
So you knew you wanted to create a map of this system.
Well, okay, I can give you my reasons why. So the Explorador map, it cost a lot of money to make because we had to hire a couple porters and stuff, and just with the breathing gas, it was like, 70 dives that are all like multi-stage dives to do it. So it costed a lot of money to make that map. And I was kind of like, I really want to do this. I want to keep making maps, but I can't, we're not making a ton of money here.
Yeah,
I can't just be like, hey, Natalie, I'm going to spend all my money on this, making this map. So I was like, I need to offset this a little bit. So I should go map a commercial cave that cave divers go and visit, and then I could sell that map and fund other projects, right? And so that was a little bit the motivation, make a little bit of money off of the cartography if I wanted to keep doing it. And so I knew Dos Palmas is a good one because Dos Ojos is a big part of Sistema Sakaktoon, which was like the longest underwater cave in the world. I think it may have been overpassed by Oshpelha now, so don't quote me on that, but gets you into a very famous historic section for underwater caves here. But Dos Ojos, the main entrance, is guide only, and Dos Palmas is anyone. And it's very close. And so that's why I did Dos Palmas, because it gets people into that whole Dos Ojos section. And I had already had a bit of survey there. I was kind of like learning how to survey in there a long time ago, thinking, I could map this one day. And then I was like, this is way too hard. I'm never going to map this. Basically, like, started and quit like 3 times, like in the past. But then after the Explorador map, I was like, no, I can do this. Like, got a little bit more experience now. Got a chance. And so that's how I kind of started. And just went straight into it.
So how are you measuring like the width of the cave, or is that kind of just all going like? Is it super like? Does that make sense? Like how?
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Okay.
So there's a combination of things. In smaller passages, I can estimate, and I know like my arm span measurements. I can do things like that. So a combination, I'll estimate some things. I run a lot of line, and also the caves, like particularly in Dos Palmas, is a very complex cave. It's like a labyrinth, and so there's way more line than people realize. And so when I have all of that line survey, like you're basically, for the first part of that cave dive, you're swimming down the main line, and you're passing a jump line like every 30 seconds, but you don't realize it because they're hidden. And so there's just a web of lines. And so once I have all of that line, I'm swimming on them, I'm estimating from both sides of the passage, sort of.
Okay.
Like around columns and things. And so that makes it so that I'm no longer estimating like 15 meters that way. It's more like 6-7 meters from each side of the line. So that helps. If I don't articulate things well, so if that just sounded complete nonsense, I apologize.
No, it does. It makes sense.
Combination of like a lot of line survey. And then in bigger rooms, I'll also sometimes run mapping lines that I call. So I'll just run a line along the walls and survey it.
Okay.
That's a very accurate way. And then I also have this little handheld sonar gun, which works, but it gets a lot of interference. So if there's like a lot of percolation or if there's like a lot of speleothems, it'll start hitting those and gives you incorrect readings. It's usually obvious because it's like you're pointing at something that should be like 8 meters and you're getting something that's like 3 meters. You're like, okay, it's wrong. Carry one of those little things as well. It's like, it looks like a backup light, basically. It's small.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like $100 or so. So that's like a cheap little thing that I can use as well, just to help estimate in a bigger space.
Yeah.
I also will occasionally I carry a spool with like some knotted line on it. And so occasionally I'll just run a spool out, count the knots, be like, all right, this is, 8 meters. My philosophy on the underwater cave maps is I am mapping an underwater cave. I need to be accurate within reason. Like I don't need to be within 3 centimeters of accuracy to the wall. And it's also unrealistic because even if you were to measure, like some people would measure from the tie-off, they'll actually take a measuring tape and measure to the wall. And they'll do that at every tie-off. But there's 70 feet between the two tie-offs that's unmeasured.
Yeah.
And so you're still just estimating all of that, right? So I try and keep things within reason so that they're achievable.
Yeah.
Also from like cave conservation, I don't always want to necessarily swim out to the wall every single time because you can start causing percolation coming down and then there'll be stuff sitting all over the previously pristine floor and things like that. So I estimate a lot. And in bigger spaces, I will run lines or something like that to measure.
And how long did the whole project take?
Probably like 1.5 years or so.
Oh, wow. Is this doing it every day? Or
No.
Okay, I was going to say, is it just kind of like a couple times a week, just kind of just slowly chipping away at it?
Yeah.
So are there other tools that you use besides kind of what you listed? Because I want to say I've seen a couple tools, and I might be wrong, but photogrammetry, is that what it is? Have you kind of got into that, like photogrammetry of caves?
I think it's neat, but I don't have any interest in doing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
It seems you're just going to end up sitting on your computer forever, like processing things. And it's also a lot of work.
Yeah.
People think it would be faster than sketching, and it is absolutely not faster than sketching. I think the largest amount of cave passage I've seen with photogrammetry was like a couple 100 meters or something. Like the Dos Palmas map was like 11.5 kilometers. So to do photogrammetry on all of that would be ridiculous. It would be too much.
Okay.
I would be taking pictures for like years. Definitely not a thing that I would be able to process on my laptop. I would need some serious computer power.
No, for sure. And I've spoken to a few people on the podcast that doing a lot of photogrammetry on wrecks. Mm-hmm. And I definitely think it's kind of cool because you can get like a 3D model of the wreck. And I want to say I've seen a couple people doing it with caves or mines, I should say. Looks like cool technology. I am very ignorant when it comes to this stuff, so I'm just like, oh, that's cool pictures, Yeah. Here for the pictures, not the words. But no, it just seems kind of cool, like the sort of stuff that's going into it. So you were kind of saying earlier that these are courses that you eventually want to offer? Yes.
So I think what I would like to do, I think there's a issue with cave divers here where people are willing to do survey. Survey is kind of the easy part, right?
Yeah.
It's just, especially with like things like the MNEMO, it's a survey device. You just clip it onto the line and run it along, and then it does everything for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's cool. So there's a lot of people doing that, and they're just like resurveying things.
Really quick, because I'm curious, I was actually trying to think about what that little contraption was called, the MNEMO. So what does it actually do? You clip it on the line and it measures distance and that's it? Or does it measure...
All of it, the azimuth and the depth.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of people doing that, and that's great, but I think we don't need everything resurveyed. We need maps of stuff, right? We've mapped few of the caves here. They have line surveys, but it represents the line, not the cave. Not quite the same thing, right? And so I would like to do something that brings more divers to the cartography side, the sketching side. And so what I would like to do is have workshops and then run group projects so that people we're focusing on sketching, and then we can do this as a group project so that you don't have to go personally dive 100 times in the same cave to map it.
Oh,
we can all just, we get like 10 different people join the project. They all do a few dives, and then we have a map, and just keep doing that.
Okay.
And I think we can start actually mapping a significant amount of the caves here. So that's my goal, is to do more sketching workshops with like focus on sketching, not survey.
So do you have to be a good sketcher because I'm horrible?
No, I'm not. I'm not a drawer. Like, I don't draw well either, right? So that's something I'm going to try and teach people is we're not being creative. We're cartographers, so we're just drawing what is there. And so if, you're just replicating the shape of the wall. We don't have to be creative and come up with something. We're just literally sort of tracing the shape of the wall.
Let me know. I might be one of the first people to sign up, because that actually does sound kind of cool, because that was one of the challenging things, because I just historically draw bad pictures. So they're like, okay, we need to create a map. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay, here's some lines. They're like, okay, create the cave. And I'm just like, So anything that I could do to help out my skills in that area would be cool. So this would be something like, would it be kind of like the Science Week thing where you have like, okay, this week we're going to go do this. We need to get a X amount of people to be able to go out and start this course? Or
similar, but longer term. Not everyone has to be there at the same time.
Okay.
So you can just, one person at a time is fine. Basically, I would just organize it. So you do the workshop, I get you sketching, you come back in 6 months or next year, and if the map's not finished, you want to do a few more dives on it, I just give you a sheet of that waterproof paper with your section of survey, and you go work on it.
Okay.
Yeah. I would have a Google Drive where everyone can have access to all the scans of everyone's sketches, and they can draft. I'll teach them how to draft on Adobe Illustrator as well, and so everyone can be at home drafting their copy of the map as well.
Okay, and then basically you're going to compile all of these into, I guess I'm assuming, one spot where everybody has their own additions that they put in.
I'll probably draft one final version, and then we can make that available for divers.
Okay.
But yeah, people will have all access to all the data, and I'll post it up on my website as well for free.
Oh,
which is
awesome.
Just something I've been doing with my maps. Just
getting the information out there.
Yeah, let people have access to them and use them.
Do you have a future mapping project in mind?
Oh yeah. No, I've got my next few years planned out.
Anything you can talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not. Yeah. I don't think there's so few of us doing this. This is the problem. Like there's like 3 cartographers here and like 1,000 cave divers. So
really?
Trying to change those numbers a little bit, right?
Build those numbers up. You got to start that course soon, man. Yeah.
So I'm not worried about anyone jumping my project so much. But yeah, so we just moved recently. We bought a house. I've had some life stuff happening where I've had to like really scale back the diving for about 1.5 years now. And so I've been basically renovating our house, but I'm pretty much done, very close to being finished finally. And so I'm kind of getting back into this. And so my next project is I would like to do a smaller cave project before I go into like something 11 kilometers again. So I'm going to map, there's a place originally called 27 Steps. It is now going by the name Cenote Puerta Maya or something like that. It's in Akumal. And it recently opened up. They're using it for training as well. So I'm going to go map the upstream section of that, which is a smaller 2 kilometers max of cave passage I need to map. And it's simple. They're like tunnels, very like just a nice borehole tunnel. I can map that very quickly now after doing 11 kilometers of labyrinth. So that's my next project. Kind of kick myself in the butt and get back into this. Something I can achieve very quickly, within a month or so, I think, if I go full-time on it. And then I'm going straight back into the Dos Ojos area, so the continuation of the Dos Palmas map. So the next one will be centered over Cenote Dos Ojos, and that will be a massive 11-kilometer thing or something. But basically, my long-term goal here is to map the entire historic Dos Ojos section. Not the entire, but basically, I want to get all the way to the pit. Do you know that place?
Yes.
So the far downstream side of my Dos Palmas map is a place called Nixteja. So I want to have that all the way to the pit. And it'll be like 60-something kilometers, probably more.
Oh, wow.
It'll be a very big map. But it'll be like probably 4 parts.
Oh,
so that's my
okay.
long-term plans. It'll probably take like 10 years or something. I don't know.
So you'll have separate maps that all compile into one big map.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do have more than your next few years planned.
Yeah. No, I've got a big project.
I was saying earlier, man, the renovations look absolutely amazing. So
Thanks.
We're here now. They've graciously invited me into their home to record and kind of show me some of the things that you've done. And yeah, absolutely really, really nice work that you've done here. So cool, man. So my last question for you before I let you go is, someone that wants to get into cartography of underwater caves, obviously they can give you a call, but what advice would you give to that person? They've never done anything like this before. They want to start. Where could they start? What is something that they could go do? Like something you can start on land and just try to practice, or how would you get into that?
Map your house. Yeah. Serious, I did that.
Oh, really?
Run line around your house, survey it, and map it. No, I legit did that. But really, you have to have patience with it. You can't rush. So something I didn't actually say, but I should say, is I started doing this. I had probably around 700 cave dives or so already. You don't need to have that many, but you don't want to start doing this with 100 cave dives. I think to do it safely, you need to be all of the cave diving aspect. You're basically drawing tiny pictures while cave diving, right? And so you need to have the entire cave diving aspect on lock. It needs to just be on autopilot in the back of your mind, and it needs to be safe. You have to have the navigation, everything needs to be happening correctly. And so you really have to get experienced diving first, and don't rush into it, and do things small steps. Like I said, I had many little maps that are like in various stages of completion. And those are, when I say little maps, I have maps that are 100 feet of cave and things like that. We're going to start small and work up to it. And so that's something I'm going to really stress with people on these workshops. And also I'll accompany them as well. Have someone watching. Just keep things safe, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Patience is really just, you have to get all your buoyancy and base skills down as best as you can, and really just work on it and practice. Like I practice just like hovering, so that I can just hover while sketching and not.
You're not focusing
on the hovering.
Yeah.
You got to get the first thing down, and then once you can do that, you're kind of in the clear to start learning how to sketch.
So I did just think of one last question. Do you think that there will ever be a published book of all the unfinished sketches, these little sketches? Just I feel like that would be kind of funny, the unfinished work of Rory, and just like going all these pages.
Random little, yeah. I should just put them all. I'll make a thing on my website or something and just publish them all.
Yeah. And just curious, so people know, what is your website?
Yes, surveydown.com.
Okay, and I will definitely add a link to that. Well, Rory, I absolutely appreciate the coffee. I absolutely appreciate your time in joining the podcast. Thank you very much. And I hope to have you back on in the future. And once you get some of these workshops going, I hope to come back and join one of them. I feel like I have, I'd like to come back for a science week. I'd like to come back for fun cave dives, more courses. And yeah, that workshop sounds something that's super interesting. So I hope I can come back and make it to one of those one day.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for joining the podcast today.
Yeah, it's fun.
Off-gassing, a scuba podcast.